40 Waters, welcome to this week's episode of 40 Watt Podcast. You're going to hear me say that again here in a minute. But before we get started, we get to the interview with Jax Hollow. I hope you all enjoy it. We had a really great time. We talked about the struggles and trials of an artist moving to a town like Nashville, trying to make a name for themselves and to build themselves up as an artist, as a creative. I thought we had a really, really great conversation. It was a little more serious than some of our conversations around here, and I hope you enjoy it. But before we get started, I need to thank a bunch of sponsors, and we need to talk about a few things here at the top of the podcast. First of all, I want to thank our newest Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/40wattpodcast. Want to thank Andy Yates. I want to thank Jeremy for joining the podcast support crew there. Andy at the $5 level. It's the only official tier over there. And Jeremy decided to give a little more than the $5 level every month. And I can't thank you all enough for all the support. All of my Patreon supporters mean the world to me, and I appreciate all of you. Also want to thank Barry over at Grez Guitars. Grez Guitars is continuing to support the podcast this season. I can't thank Barry for his support enough. Barry makes some of my favorite instruments, period. You can go over to Grez Guitars on Instagram. You can go to grezguitars.com, the website, and check those out. He's got a new bass that I don't even know if it officially has a name yet, but I want one real bad. I saw it at Woodwire Volts during the NAMM weekend. Additionally, sponsoring the podcast this week, we are adding Maris Pedals, who I think the team, Angelo, Terry, and Gina over at Maris, make some of the coolest effects on the planet. I've been reacquainting myself with the LVX. The Mercury X lives on my pedal board, and I'm really excited about their newest pedal, the Enzo X. Going to be getting my hands on that one really soon, and making some of the wildest noises and fun sounds and music and get creative with it. Additionally, want to thank Summer School Electronics, Mark up there in Syracuse, New York, making amazing pedals. I have recently been playing with this pedal over here on my left. For those of you watching, guitar over here on the left, which is the Lizzie Hale signature from Gibson, the Explorer Bird, and I needed a high gain sound. I don't really have a high gain amp, so I grabbed my Summer School class reunion and cranked that thing up and was getting some of the raddest sounds, and maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. But I really appreciate the support from Maris, Grez, and Summer School and making this happen. Additionally, I know that we're past the window, but I really want to express my deepest appreciation to Sweetwater for their sponsorship support of the NAMM House. A bunch of creators went to NAMM. We had a great time. We got a bunch of great content, made some great connections, brought a lot of stuff to y'all, and we gave away a guitar. Actually, as of recording today, that guitar giveaway is happening, so I don't even know who won yet, but if it was you, congratulations, and thanks for supporting the show. That's enough. I'm going to stop. Please enjoy this episode with Jax Hollow. 40 Waters, welcome to this episode, 40 Watt Podcast. I am your host, Philip, as usual. This week, I've got a guest that I connected actually via the Guitar Dads podcast. Matt and Dave got to meet Jax at the, the
NAMM.
At the NAMM. You were at the Anderson booth?
Yeah.
Is Tom Anderson? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a whole moment where I was like, I almost said Tom Anderson. And I was like, oh, if I get this wrong, we're going to have to start again. No, it's fine. So, but we connected that way. I was listening to a whole bunch of music and I was like, I got to get you on the podcast. I love getting players on the podcast as much as I like getting gear people and other people in the podcasting space and YouTube space. I love getting actual people who are out there, beating the streets, playing the shows, playing the festivals, playing everything from the dives to the arenas, those kinds of things. I love getting folks who are actually doing this thing that we all love. And so I knew I had to get you on the podcast. So how are you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Glad to have you hanging out, talking all things guitar and music. Of course, this is a guitar podcast, y'all, but when I get a chance to talk to songwriters, I also have a habit of veering way off into inspirations and songwriting. So I have no doubt we're going to talk a whole lot of that kind of stuff. But before we get too far and I let my ADHD veer us down a path of no return, let's give our listeners a chance to get the backstory. Like, how'd you get into music? How'd you get into playing guitar and doing this crazy thing that we all do?
Yeah, pretty insane thing to just kind of go full throttle into.
Yeah,
Let's see. I played guitar first because I wanted to be cool and I was kind of a loser.
don't we all?
I don't know about anyone else, but it started as a pretty narcissistic kind of well, still is you know, sort of a thing to define myself as. When you're a teenager and you're looking for something to grab onto, you're kind of looking pretty frantically.
Yeah, something to identify as, something that sets you apart, right?
And something to express yourself is like even above and beyond that, because then you have sort of like a superpower.
Yeah,
So that's where it started.
I think that's interesting that that's where you start out, like, because I feel like that's a really kind of a deep conversation we could actually go a long time on. But so I didn't come to guitar until I was almost graduated high school. I was a really late starter, quote unquote, on guitar, because I identified myself by the sports I played. I identified myself by the grades I made, and it was a weird thing when I made that shift to being a guitar guy and not the football guy or the guy everyone cheated on in math class guy, because I was good at math back then. I don't know what happened. Gone. Do not trust my math ever. But yeah, as teenagers, we just want something to identify us and set us. We almost tribalize around something. We have to have something that we're known for.
Oh yeah, once those hormones kick in and everything, it's about to get crazy, and you know how kids are.
Yeah.
Kids are nasty.
It
So
was there music already in your household?
no, um, uh, nah, not really. I come from a blue collar family. No, not a whole lot. It's just something that me and a bunch of kids I went to school with really got into. I was kind of fortunate. I went to a really small middle school and high school.
Hmm.
There are about like 30 kids per grade. It was in Western Massachusetts, and it was like a bit of a little hippie town. So,
Hmm.
we all kind of gravitated towards the music of like the 60s, 70s, and wanted to be like that kind of lifestyle. We'd like listen to Pink Floyd and like smoke weed,
Yeah.
and we just thought we were the coolest shit, and we'd like learn Zeppelin riffs, and whoever had like the coolest one would advance in the social hierarchy of that week. So it was a really beautiful place to grow up, very outdoors.
I want to live in a world where Zeppelin riffs are the thing that put you in your social cast. I wouldn't be very high, but I do know a lot of Zeppelin riffs. It'd be a lot of fun. So you take up a guitar, you start playing with all your friends. How long before like you're like, oh, we should put a band together and we should start actually playing places other than just hanging out and playing music with yourselves?
Sure, yeah. Well, there were a lot of different basements and a bunch of different kids that I'd play music with and join other bands and do all kinds of stuff. And like a lot of local little shows, little talent shows, little here and there's kind of things. I remember my first paid check was from uh, this little set that I did for the 4th of July in Greenfield, Massachusetts. So that was pretty exciting to get a check. You know,
Yeah.
you're a kid and you're like, oh my gosh,
Someone
I
paid me to do this thing I love to do.
yeah.
So how did that? Because I love how musician origin stories go. So y'all are playing. How'd you end up with a paid gig? How'd that first gig happen? Do you remember? Like who booked that? How you got connected?
I believe it was through um, this woman. Her name's Stephanie Marshall. She's a really great singer songwriter, guitarist. She's part of the Boxcar Lilies, and she really took me under her wing. I don't remember how it got started. She must have been affiliated with like the high school in some
Hmm.
way, and I met her through something like that, and she must have saw that I was kind of serious about this thing, as serious as like a teenager can be about
Right.
something. So
Yeah.
all it takes is just like somebody to give somebody else a little leg up, and then it just starts chain reactions.
Yeah. So Listen, for those of you listening and not watching this on YouTube, I feel like it's important as Jax is telling stories about being a teen. You're not exactly a grizzled old veteran at this yet. Like you're still pretty young, so we're not even talking that long ago. So, in the grand scheme of things, like as someone who's 44 here,
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things. It's really interesting to see coming from that time playing that first gig to now the stuff you're doing now. We're going to get there. I don't want to move too quickly, but it's a pretty big jump fairly quickly. And you're doing a lot of this on your own, no label, putting it together yourself. And we want to touch on a bunch of that. So
Sure.
at what point did you figure out that, hey, this is what I want to do? This isn't just a hobby or a thing I identify as. This is what I'm going to do.
Sure. Well, that happened when I decided to uh, graduate Berklee and be
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm going to take on all this debt for this bullshit degree in songwriting. I mean, you can't get more serious than that. It's like, hey, let me go into a ton of debt
Yeah.
to have this piece of paper that says I'm good at this thing. And then you get into the real world and they're like, you shouldn't talk about your college degree. Just don't tell people you're Berklee affiliated. I'm like, okay, cool. Great. So maybe I should have just like bypassed that, but whatever.
There's definitely a stigma to it. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
went
and of
to
course they don't tell you that during orientation, Hey, when you get to
one.
Nashville, don't go in there being like, I'm Berklee, like, because I got my ass handed to me. Like the first 3 weeks I got to Nashville, they're like, shh. I'm like, no, I'm from Berklee. And I'm like, oh man, I got put in my place so fast, and they were so right. Because what happens when you go to Berklee is you get your little ego inflated. You think you're hot shit, and then you get like thrown to the wolves in downtown in Nashville. And
Yeah.
if you don't learn fast, like, oh,
Yeah, it'll spit you back out real
duh,
quick.
this is great.
I went to MTSU for audio engineering for the recording industry management program over there in Murfreesboro. Something I learned while I was over there, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my time. I didn't graduate from MTSU. I ended up finishing a music and audio engineering degree at a different school. But the thing I learned the most while I was there is, and I took a couple of songwriting classes while I was at MTSU. I'm still a very very middling songwriter because I just don't carve out the time to exercise that skill. It's a skill just like anything else. You can develop better into a better songwriter, listeners. So if you think you're a bad songwriter, you can get better by just doing it. It same thing is true in the audio engineering world. You go to school for it, you get taught a whole bunch of stuff, and then when you get out in the real world to do it, they're like, yeah, none of that ever applies. Like the real world doesn't function like your classroom or your lab did. Now go get coffee and help me set up microphones. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was
Well,
I am experiencing a little lag, listeners. I'm sorry. I'm having a little bit of an internet issue here. So you go to Berklee. Do you move directly from finishing Berklee to go into and then move to Nashville?
so there had to be a time period of about 4 to 5 months where I had to actually procure the funds to move to
Sure.
Nashville. So I actually I got a warehouse job at Yankee Candle, and I picked up candles, put them in the boxes, put the stickers on the boxes, and shoved them on the conveyor belt. And I turned around, and I did that again and again and again. And I did like the early shift at like 3 a.m. or something weird like
My
that.
gosh.
But I'd be writing lyrics on the sticker, the little sticker things that you get. Like when you like take a shipping label off and you have like piece
Yeah.
of paper left. So I'd be writing songs while I was doing that, and just by the end of the day, I'd have a bunch of like random pieces of paper stuffed in like pockets of different song ideas throughout the day. So as soon as I saved up literally to the cent of what I needed, and let me tell you, I was pretty young, so like the people I was renting from in Nashville, they were like, no, 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 you got to come here with 3 months up front because we don't
Yeah.
trust your ass. And I'm like, that's fine. So I had to save up 3 months. And then the minute I had enough money, I was gone. And
Yeah.
I quit.
That probably has something to do with that similar the conversation from earlier about, folks come to Nashville with these big ideas, they're going to do this thing and they're going to make it in Nashville, and so many of them leave very quickly. They don't stick it out for very long, or they don't make it. Maybe they had the wrong idea of what it was.
Here's the thing, the intoxication of this really beautiful, totally free, very wild lifestyle that we're all chasing as like the vagabond, the mysterious musician, the one that shows up and like just kills you with a song,
Hmm.
that is incredibly alluring.
It
But
really is.
can you sleep in your car for like 3 months while you figure out where to eat? Not a lot of people can do all of that. And honestly, sometimes that's what it takes. And nobody wants to even admit that or talk about it. They all just want to hear the success story. But if you want to talk about it, I'm right here.
Well, I feel like that needs to be talked about because a lot of people think, oh, you moved to Nashville, you're going to make it. Things, you're going to be heard like in your first week there. When I moved to Murfreesboro, I had no illusions of becoming, a recording artist or any of those things. I moved because I was into songwriting, I was into studio work, I was into like the actual audio engineering side of things, not the playing. Sure, I wanted to play. I'm a guitar player. All of everyone who plays guitar wants to make it to that stage, but that wasn't what I went there for. And some of the folks I did play for while I was there, just watching the hustle and the work. And to be honest, those that didn't work, and you could tell they were completely unprepared when they got there. They didn't they weren't ready to do what it becomes necessary to do to build a name for themselves in a place where the valet that parks people's car is slipping their demo into people's CD players. Back in the day when people had CD players. But that's the kind of city that Nashville is. I don't know the numbers, but there's got to be more musicians per capita there than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I was just at a man. My buddy John Salloway just has this amazing Beatles brunch thing at City Winery that I went to earlier today in Nashville, and how they were doing the closing "Hey Jude," and they're like, "All right, y'all sing out there," and I'm like, and they're like, and of course you hear like a 3-part harmony. You're like, yeah, everyone in the crowd, every bartender, every server you have, everyone is extremely talented. So when you get the gig, treat it like gold because they don't have the gig. They're waiting tables. They really want the gig. And you only have so much time to devote to stuff, you know?
yeah. It's a tough way to do things. I was in Nashville last year for I get up there fairly often at this point, but I was up there because I was playing guitar for a high school show choir, and they were doing one of the nationals competitions was in Nashville. So we were competing there, and it was 2 days. So after the first day, went over and got lunch at. So it's at Opryland,
Mm-hmm.
and so we at the Grand Ole Opry, and we go to the mall that's next door and connected. We used to affectionately refer to as Shopryland. It has this German bar in it, and
Yeah,
because
Bavaria or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's really good. The food's great. The beer's good. It's a little expensive because it is what it is. It's, a tourist trap in Nashville. But on stage, they have musicians playing, and they're playing some pop stuff, but a lot of like, huh?
They're playing.
Yeah, some of it. They do some pop stuff, and they do like some traditional German stuff and polka, and there's accordion and guitar, and I'm listening and I'm watching and really thinking about the fact that the two folks up there playing this German bar at the Opry Mills is they're better than 90% of every musician that plays in most small town America because they came to Nashville to do something, and they're here. And they didn't look at a gig like this like it was a thing they shouldn't do. They got up and they played their asses off for a bunch of folks eating pretzels and drinking beer at a mall. And that's the gigs. That's what people do to make it in Nashville.
I used to play at that. They actually used to have live music there. There's a near the aquarium and near the what's that, Madam Whatever's
But yeah, Madame Tussauds.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to play in that. There's like a little stage. Nobody plays there anymore. I don't think they do it anymore.
Really?
No, but I used to do that a lot, and I get I'd always get the woman from the aquarium coming out and be like, can you just turn down a little bit? And I'd be like, oh. But I, those gigs were amazing. That was like my first handshake to Nashville. That was like,
Yeah.
yeah, they, now that I think, I don't really take a lot of time to sit back and really think about all the places I've played in Nashville and the people that I've met, and actually a lot of people that aren't even here anymore, like you
Hmm.
said, that sort of just gave up the fight. And let me tell you, I never am like, haha, you couldn't take it. It's never with that. It's always with a man. I know how you feel and I know how devastating it is. And I'm really sorry because it is like a small death. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people come here with stars in their eyes and they have really incredible moments and everything. And when I hear about another, because it's sort of like an unspoken thing of like, oh, did you hear so and so went back home? It's always went back home,
Yeah.
and that happens pretty often, man.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. I remember distinctly. So when I moved back home from Murfreesboro, went to school at MTSU for 2 years, and my mom's health became an issue, so I moved back home to help her. But there was definitely a moment when I moved back and I realized, because I started playing, I went back to Mississippi, Blues Gig Central. I'm playing, 3, 4 blues gigs a week. And I was like, I'm playing more here in Mississippi than I ever played when I was in Nashville, because there was so much struggle to get those gigs. And like you said, once you grab one and you've got one, hold on for dear life, because there's, 100 people behind you wanting that gig. It's a tough place to survive.
yeah,
So we're going to move on a little bit because we're getting a little dark now. And I'm like, oh, we got to brighten things up. We got to liven things up. So you moved to Nashville, you're doing the thing, and you've got this degree in songwriting you can't talk about. And so you start playing these gigs. When did you start putting together like Jax Hollow? When did you start putting together you as a performer, as a artist?
sure, yeah. When I first got to Nashville, I hit the streets. I actually busked
Mm.
before I got like real gigs, and I
What
got
was your
picked
favorite
up.
busking spot? What was your favorite busking
It
spot?
was right outside of Hard Rock. I don't think you can do it anymore. I think they'll take you away, but it was right outside of Hard Rock. I actually remember going in there and asking, because I'm one of those people that asks. I
Hmm.
remember going into the establishment being like, "Can I busk outside on Second Avenue?" And they're like, "Yes." And so that's back when you even could do that. So, and that's back before that guy blew up Second Avenue on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So it was a totally different environment down there anyway. But trying not to get dark. All right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
getting we're low. Wait, hold on. What we're doing? Yeah. Wait, where was I?
So you busk for a little bit. You start busking to sort of develop you as an artist.
Sure, and that's a great way to develop a man. They getting fed to the wolves from the get go. You get to see in real time what songs really grab people. And people loved it when I do like a "Hey Mama said the way you move gonna make you sweat," and I do the riff thing too, and it really got people going. I had a couple like kind of viral videos out of that, and then I got picked up by some cover bands. Started doing the cover band circuit. I did like some hard rocks and like just like casinos, and so that kind of stuff was fun. And then I got into the cruise ship world, so the Rolling Stone Rock Room aboard Holland America. So that's where I kind of assembled my dream team band. So I took
Yeah.
the people who I wanted from Nashville who I met and took them on a cruise ship. And for about 2 years, we played, you know, like all the classic rock songs ever. Like, I mean, that was my job. I got like full time, like 3 shows a night to play. For me, like to sing Stairway to Heaven and then rip the solo for Stairway to Heaven, to do Crazy Train, to sing and play Crazy Train, and all these huge iconic rock songs that I loved, that I played as a 12-year-old, to try to make friends when I was a kid, so pretty amazing. But what I was missing was the original music thing.
Yeah.
I started going down that road of like live performance and the gimmicks and the playing guitar behind the head and the whole thing. And so I was really missing that, because at the end of the day, I used to be known as the girl, who plays Sweet Child of Mine behind my head, like downtown. I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm not really that. I really am an artist. And the tough lessons I've been learning recently is that when you are an introverted, just creative, you cannot shy away from that. And if you do, it just comes like it's gonna just come back around. You're gonna have to like live with it and realize it that you can't change who you are. I guess that works with anything, but like especially creatives. Like if you have that creative knack that's just not leaving you alone in the back of your head, like I'm sorry, but welcome. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna be hard, and you're different. It's so hard to fit in, and you're always gonna feel like you just don't belong. You know,
It's a tough perspective. So I think in that whole developing of yourself as a musician, though, going back to that cruise ship, because I've had lots of friends who have done the cruise ship circuit. I have a friend of mine that served as a music director for like 5 years for Carnival Cruises, doing some of their stuff out of New Orleans and some stuff out of Florida. Gig is a way to get those 10,000 hours in fast.
and then some, man. 3 shows a night, every single night. Maybe you get one day off a week, like.
Hmm.
But in that one day off, you're trying to catch up on your social media stuff and creating content. So it's like you don't actually get a day off your fingers or your voice. So I was a lead guitarist and a lead singer. So and I
Yeah.
was the band director. But like like
Yeah.
it's a yeah, it's a lot, and it is amazing to actually. It's very lucky gig to like get paid to put in those 10,000 hours. Because a lot of people are not paid for those 10,000 hours
Yeah.
to make
That
a living doing
they're
it.
getting them in the evenings or in the mornings before they go work, whatever 40, 50, 60 hour week job. They've
Mhm.
got to work to make ends meet until they can make that leap to trying to do this full time. And the cruise ship is they're coveted, they're hard to get, but I have some friends who came out of it. They played the cruise ship for 2, 3, 4 years even, and then they came out of it. I have one in particular, my buddy Graham. He banked all of the money he made, didn't
Mhm.
spend a dime, and then came out and started his business. He's a surveyor. That's what he does. That's what he used the money for, and he still plays music on the side on the weekends, and that was his business decision, and that's great. That's awesome. That's what he wanted. And then I've got other friends who it kick-started their wanderlust. I have a friend of mine that I don't know from one week to the next where she is in the world, because she just takes the cheapest flight she can get somewhere, takes a guitar and goes and plays and makes some money and does the thing.
Yeah, she's a
That's
woman after my own heart, right there. That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, you'd like her. I should actually introduce y'all. She's in actually it's a good question. Where is she now? I don't actually know. She's somewhere in the South, living in the South somewhere. But it's a it is grueling. People think it's all sunshine and rainbows and suntans and pools and Caribbean beaches. There's fun, but it's just round the clock work.
It's fun. And it just depends how seriously you want to take it. You could
Hmm.
get out there and you could get lost. You could just like play all day and then drink all night and then wake up, rinse, repeat. But that wasn't me. I wanted something. I couldn't get rid of the urge of like, no, I'm a creator. I'm an
Hmm.
artist. I love playing covers. I love my bandmates. I love meeting people. I love traveling. I love like just attacking new opportunities and like getting at it. But like I said earlier, I'm sorry if you are a creative, but I'm also like really happy you are. But like, do not try to like push that shit down because it's just gonna come up in weird ways. You just are who you
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
So when did the formation of the first records start to happen? You start gigging original music as Jax Hollow. How'd that really start to? You come off the ship, obviously, and now you've got the itch. You're like, okay, that was fun, but that's not me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I get off the ship, and actually, my contract was cut short because COVID. So March 15th, I was like stranded on some cruise ship, and I somehow made it off onto like U.S. soil, and I was like, I am not getting back on. I uh, uh, I I was like, now's the time. So I went through a lot. Everyone went through a lot for COVID, and I was really ballsy one day, and I sent out this email to Michael Wagner. No,
Hmm.
he's a legendary producer, Metallica, Skid Row, Motley
Yeah.
Crue, the whole nine yards. An incredible guy. And sent out an email. I was like, "Here's my original music that I recorded in the bowels of a cruise ship because I've got a Scarlet whatever, and I've got
Yeah.
a little voice, so I can make these demos." And it was a really like hard rock, shreddy, like Van Halen kind of thing. And I sent it off to him because I knew he'd at least listen to it because it's his style. And he was like, "Is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me singing and playing." And he's like, "Do you wanna come by the studio like tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I show up at his doorstep and I meet him, and he's like literally the sweetest person in the world, and he's so amazing. And he gave me a shot, and like I love Michael Wagner. He's so cool. And he's just like, "Do you want to get started recording this next week?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
So like literally from the email I sent to the next week, I was in his studio every day going there. I think we did it in like maybe a month. The first EP, Underdog Anthems, and it was just like heaven. Every day I walk in and he's just like, "Here's what we do today." It couldn't have been the most perfect experience. I'd never ever cut an original record like with, especially, and
Yeah.
then you do it with like him. And so yeah, that's got High Class Bitch, 52 pickup, a bunch of my big ones. The Rebound that got put on Joe Bonamassa's like epic guitar solo playlists and stuff. It was really cool, just amazing experience. And yeah, just so lucky. But you do have to put those things out there in the world. You can't just be like, this, like they're gonna discover me one day. Like, yeah, they can, but I'm here to tell you I've got like 6 million viewed viral videos, and like nobody,
Yeah. Exactly.
nobody
Nothing
reached out and was
happened.
like, "Hey, I'm like this, can we work together?" Or if they do, it's like spam on like to your email. It's like, "Hey, content creator at Jax Hollow." Like you're just like so sick of it.
Yeah.
But you do have to go out there and chase things. Like if you come to I don't know who I'm speaking to. I'm just like, if you come to Nashville and you think you're going to get discovered, I don't think it quite works like that anymore. Maybe
Mm-mm.
it used to, but you have to put in the time, and then you kind of have to reach out to people. And I think there's like a magical thing where at some point your name goes around enough, and someone if someone kind of knows you, and then an opportunity, a spark happens. And that's what happened with the Melissa Etheridge thing. Is
Yeah.
my name just somehow got to her, and she knew that I existed, and then she was like, "We're going to give her a shot." And she was the next gatekeeper to really elevate me and make me gain a little bit more, like, what's the word, just clout, maybe, I don't know, when
Yeah.
you have.
Actually, clout's a really
Yeah,
good word for it.
yeah.
Basically somebody willing to vouch for you, and you've had it's clout, for listeners that aren't don't know, and I don't mean the Webster's definition of the word here. Clout is a word that gets thrown around Nashville a lot, at least it did when I lived there. I don't know if it still does now, but basically clout amounts to, okay, you've been here, you're doing the thing, people know you, you're a known commodity, you start to develop a reputation. And it's, I think what you're saying, the whole thing, people don't come to Nashville and just get discovered anymore. You're right. I'm honestly not sure that ever really happened. I'm sure there's like the outlier stories of it happening, but really what happens is the people who move to Nashville and get discovered worked their asses off for 10 years, playing every bar and every gig they could. They became friends with musicians. They were out in the community. It's the old faithful phrase, you must be present to win. You got to be out there and doing the thing. If you're just sitting around writing songs in your bedroom and you're not actually getting out there and meeting the musicians to get those opportunities, you're not going to get them. You can't just wait for things to happen to you. You have to
Which
you have
is
to
so hard as a introvert creative.
Yeah.
Like, can we just give all y'all a fucking mental round of applause for like, it is so hard, like, honestly, for me to play the game when I love the creation of the game. And they're sort of like opposites pulling you around. And you really have to develop all these different like points on a star. Like if you are the star, like every point is like, playing ability, like stage presence, musicianship, writing chops, social, standing. It's just like it's an insane amount of different skills that you have to always level up. And then if if you're, and then you have to, survive too. You have to eat food and have a place to live. So,
Right.
we're really trying not to have this be like a negative thing. I'm just trying to be totally honest about this because, like, I wish somebody did this for me when I first got to Nashville. I was completely alone. I told you, I had exactly enough money for rent. I think yeah, I taught lessons at Guitar Center for like 3 months. And then I was like, hey, can you guys pay me more than like $10 a lesson? And they're like, no. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to find another job, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
so like, you just let's like make this more encouraging. How beautiful is it though nowadays where you have a direct access, you have the direct pipeline to like actually get your music out there and onto a streaming platform that someone can listen to. That is kind of an insane, amazing thing that's only possible nowadays. Like, you used to have
Yeah.
to go through, like, I don't know, a ton of middlemen, and now technically you can own all of your music as a writer and artist. That is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. If I existed 10 years ago, whatever, I don't know if I'd own all of the music that I have right now. If I got signed and got it through a different way, I don't think I would, because I would have to have, gone through that process.
Giving
The
away
old,
some of that.
yeah, and you always have to give a little to get a little. That's how
Sure.
life works. But to own my music, what an incredible thing.
And I think that's the thing now. And listeners, I'm bringing this up, and y'all are all hip, y'all are all cool, y'all know how the game works, y'all have heard this stuff before from other artists that have been on the show. Um, and it's not like record labels are completely dead, but so that while I was at MTSU, in this is forever ago, 2002 to 2004, I was at MTSU. And it was actually during that time that we started to see the fall of record labels. EMI closed while I was at MTSU, and like EMI was one of the big five, right? Record labels, Beatles, right? You're like, they're never going to fail. And they fell. They went bankrupt. And now we're in a place where artists, the democratization of music is to a level that an artist can record it all themselves. They can master it. If they want to send it off to somebody, they can do it. Like, you don't have to be in Nashville anymore. If you don't have to be in LA or New York, you don't have to be in a major music center. It helps. It also is a great place to get those 10,000 hours if you can deal with the torture of the sleeping in your car, like you said, doing all these things we're trying not to be too dark about and try to be rosy. But you get that opportunity to do it your way. And I think a lot of people are starting, especially musicians and artists, are getting more and more okay with, I don't need to be selling out stadiums. If I can get to where I'm selling out 1,000-seat theaters instead of 60,000-seat arenas, there's a great career to be had there.
See, what's wild about that is I would rather have that,
Yeah.
right? But
I
just
think so. I agree.
it's a personal thing. I would so much rather be like cool on the theater circuit and stay that way than go that ultra way. Because that means that, A, I'll finally have actually been able to make it where I actually have money. Like, this thing generates income for me. And then B, I can bring my guys along, and the people that I care about can benefit finally from all the bullshit I put them through. But really though, the theater, like, that's my goal. I do not want to do the uh Chapel Roan thing where she just like whoosh,
Exploded.
went exploded. Really, like, I'm not Chapel Roan. I don't think I could survive under that, but the theater thing, yeah, because then you own your own stuff, and it's like, it's all, that's beautiful. I think, like, what, like, Jason Isbell, kind of, I
Hmm.
mean, he's pretty big now, but like maybe
Sure.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe like a couple years ago, or maybe he wasn't as big. Like, I think that's the perfect thing. you know.
Yeah, I think for him, and honestly, I have to believe that at this point he could play even bigger venues than he does play now if he wanted
Yeah.
to, you
He's
know?
like selling out his European dates right now, right? He's just solo over there. Did
Yeah.
he is that still going? I think he's still over there.
Yeah, I think that just like kicked off a week or two ago, like the actual date started a week or I may be way off. I saw the email because of course I'm on the Jason Isbell email list.
Love Jason Isbell.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But I agree. And as not just a musician, but also a listener, I prefer those 1,000, 2,000 seat theaters way more than I like going to see a show at an arena or a stadium or even some of the bigger amphitheaters. They're just not, they're just, I don't know. I don't like the show as much. I got to see a few years ago, uh, Flaming Lips at a like 200 cap club because they were doing this thing where they were trying to break um they were trying to break a world record for most shows in a 24-hour time period. So they did it down here in Mississippi, and I was working at and I played at a club in Clarksdale, Mississippi, called Ground Zero Blues Club, and they were going to play there as one of their shows, and they had Gary Clark opening for them at this like and Ground Zero is like a 250 cap. Like 250 is fire code. Yeah, it's like no more people.
Mhm.
Um, I get to see Flaming Lips and Gary Clark with 249 other people, and it was the coolest show. But I don't know that that would. It's not a band I would go see at a giant arena show or something like that. I actually purposely avoid arena shows. I won't go unless my wife absolutely insists on going to see an act, and then I'll do it for her. But that's about the only thing that'll get me to go to an arena show. But I agree, and I think there's a great living to be had there. Now there's a caveat because there's always a opposite reaction, right? There's the now everybody can put music out there, so there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of other folks vying for that attention. I still think there's plenty to go around, but then you're also now fighting the I promise we won't go down this dark rabbit hole too long. You're fighting the ticket master and the ownership of these small venues, and there's not a lot of independent venues left anymore who are fighting the good fight to make sure that artists are taken care of and they have places to play that aren't dictated by whatever ridiculous money grabbing that Ticketmaster is doing.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of philosophical debates about like, the devaluation of music in general.
Hmm.
Since you can just open your phone and get like the best bit of the show, like right there in your face. What's the point of going? And I understand all that too because I post those too. I post the highlight things, the things that get the huge reactions at my shows. Of course, I'm gonna put those online because I want to incentivize people to check this out. Like this is something that I mean, you know what, man? How hard is it to play this game? And I hate advertising and I really don't know how to do it either. Like, I mean, like, people, there's real strangers who come out and see me play the music that I write. And after the show, they'll talk to me. And I've had people, one guy was like, "Hey, I quit my job last week and I blasted Renegade Season on my way home over and over again." And I was like, "That is amazing. That is so cool." And then I had this other woman. It was we were closing a show out at the Iron Horse in Northampton, Massachusetts, and she was like crying in the front row, like just like totally bawling during the song Sycamore Street, which is a song I wrote for my little brother. It turns out she lost his son to like substance, you know,
Yeah, substance abuse.
and like, I mean, how the hell do you put like the impact that somebody's music can have on someone as a shitty advertisement on the stupid little phone to try to get you to like pay attention to me, and it's such a terrible thing, and that's kind of why I wish I had a team so that they could do it in a way that would make sense. But at some point in time, like, I have no idea how to advertise myself. I just maybe it's as simple as like Q&A with some people who go to my show and just be like, "Hey, like, how did you feel when that Sycamore Street like outro really like set in, and and the whole band singing that like repetitive phrase, and it's like building and building." And Maybe that's the I don't know. I just like,
Marketing and advertising is such a difficult path because honestly, all of it feels cringy to me anyway. So
I
if you're a
hate it.
person
I
that,
hate the
yeah,
guy that's like, can we just like complain and bitch about the guys that are like, my girlfriend left me today, and and like,
uh,
it's just like, but like it works because you're showing the emotion that's in it, and I get it. I get why you're doing it, and I hate that it's successful because it is like, just like, I just want to write great songs.
yeah,
I want to
and
write.
that's a hard thing to do. Not just it is a hard thing to write great songs, but it's a hard thing to just write great songs
You
because
can't just do it unless you're
yeah,
already in it. Unless you've
you've got to be a
already
content creator. You've got to
unless you've
be
already got your foot in the door and you're over like 40 years old and you've already like, no, you no, seriously, you're
yeah,
already in the industry. If you're already in the industry, you're doing just fine. But if you are trying to, like, dude, I went on Music Row trying to meet people and talk to people.
hmm,
They have every single place like locked up. Like, I
yeah,
tried to walk into ASCAP, the place that I'm associated with.
yeah.
The door was locked on a weekday, like business hours. There was not a single car in the parking lot. And the most awkward interaction with the security guard, he has the door halfway open. He's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "I'm not here to steal your money, dude. This is ASCAP. I'm part of ASCAP." He's like, "Oh, no, no one's allowed in here without an appointment." And I'm like, "Holy shit. We can't even get
Wow,
into the lobby.
yeah,
Door's locked, and the fucking security guard's halfway in, halfway out, really awkwardly." And I'm just like, "Cool, then can I make an appointment with a human?" He's like, "Here's the number on the door." And I'm calling it, and it's like beep, 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 nothing. He's like, "Oh, that's weird." And I'm like, "Isn't that weird?" Like, it's just like, and then another one, like, they literally locked the revolving door at Curb Entertainment. I couldn't believe
wow,
it. And I tried to walk in, and I just like, how do you expect, like, there's a lot of greatness out there. There's a
hmm,
lot of amazing artists out there. And like, it is your job. I'm sorry, but it is. I'm going to say something. It is your job as a gatekeeper to open the fucking gate. Sometimes you have
it's
locked
hard.
your revolving door. That's a song right there.
Yeah, there really is. And we're going to talk about songwriting here in a second because I want to talk about that. We might wait and talk about that on the Patreon. So, listeners, if you are already a member of the Patreon, you know that there are extra episodes every week. Speaking of gatekeeping, so if for $5 a month you get extra episodes of the 40 Watt Podcast, I feel like we've been very serious this episode, and we're gonna go be lighthearted and talk about really really fun stuff, gear and guitar and songwriting and inspirations, and we're gonna talk about it over there. But I want to make sure we have a moment for you to talk about. You've got some things coming up, so listeners, if you are in the Northeast, Jax, where are you going to be next month?
Let's see. I'm going to be at the Music Room in Cape Cod,
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts. That's going to be March 14th. And then March 15th, I'm going to be at the Loft in Moncton, Maryland. That's more of a intimate, really cool kind of venue. And then
Yeah.
March 16th, I'm going to be opening for Anna Popovic at Ram's Head Live. That's going to be also in Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is super rad. The link for Jax's website is down in the show notes or in the description if you're watching on YouTube. It is jaxhollow.com. Jax, where else can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Spotify, Instagram, all over. Just at Jax Hollow, JaxHollow. That's me.
All right. Well, the links for Spotify and for Instagram are for sure down in the notes below. So, listeners, follow those and check out Jax's music. Also, there's a ton of videos on YouTube. You mentioned it on the Guitar Dads podcast, and I saw it. The ones at the Fallout shelter, which I just, as a video game nerd myself, I love that this idea of the Fallout shelter. But we're going to go over to Patreon and we're going to talk about songwriting. We're going to talk about gear a little bit in general. Jax, you got anything else you want to shout out before we head over there?
Hmm. I can't think of anything right now, but just, I appreciate that this episode is a little more down to earth. I know I come in
Yeah.
sometimes and have like, I'm fresh off a tour or something, and I'm a little more, you know, uh, a little more elevated, but I really like this kind of style of just, I'm just telling you my experience, and it gives you something, especially if you are also an artist or aspiring songwriter.
Yeah, that's what I hope too. I love these kinds of serious talks. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but I like when we can talk about serious things and the plight of artists trying to make a living making music, because that's why we're all here. That's why people are listening to this podcast. That's why I started playing guitar. That's why I'm friends with so many musicians and I still gig and I do this thing. We all want to make music and we all want to be heard, but we also want to be able to make, especially artists that are making the new music, need to be able to make a living at it.
Or at least have health insurance, you know. That's what no,
That's
honestly, that's why I like Chapel Roan. Like as soon as I saw that happen, I was like, "Thank you." Now we're on a. After that happened, I'm like, "This is a new year. Like this is
yeah.
like it's been said now. Like that's really cool for her to do that."
Yeah, I joke and it's only semi joking that the reason I stopped playing guitar full time for a living is because it didn't have health insurance.
Yeah,
I wish it were entirely joking. It's not. All
yeah.
right. Well, listeners, we're going to go over to Patreon. Hope you see you over there. And if not, catch you on the next episode. In the meantime, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.